This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, August 1st, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Katie Ledecky wins with ease her 8th Olympic gold medal. I'm Steve Futterman at the Summer Olympics in Paris.
President Biden addressing the fentanyl crisis. I'm Clayton Neville.
Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 2 accomplices in the 9/11 attack are expected to enter guilty pleas. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
On Wall Street, a winning July is in the books for the S&P 500, and the Fed said an interest rate cut is on the table for September. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
The South Carolina Supreme Court has ruled the state's death penalty is legal. I'm Hayya Panjwani.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Vice President Kamala Harris is firing back at former President Donald Trump over his claims involving her racial identity. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports.
She's got one of the worst records in anywhere.
Donald Trump held a rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania Wednesday night.
Well, Kamala, let's go. Challenge accepted. Are you ready? Let's compare our record point by point.
Earlier, he was interviewed at the National Association of Black Journalists annual convention.
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
It was the same old show.
Vice President Harris addressing Sigma Gamma Rho, a historically black sorority.
The divisiveness and the disrespect.
Adding,
the American people deserve better.
With a Jamaican father and an Indian mother,
we deserve a leader who understands that our differences do not divide us. They are an essential source of our strength.
Ben Thomas, Washington.
The deaths of senior militant leaders in 2 Middle Eastern capitals within hours has sparked potential new unrest in the region. Correspondent Julia Frankel has details.
Currently, the Middle East is reeling from 2 recent strikes on top Hamas and Hezbollah leaders, with the potential to escalate tensions in the region into a full-blown war. Tuesday evening, Israel targeted senior Hezbollah commander Fuad Shakur in Beirut. Then Wednesday morning, people woke up to the news that top Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh had been assassinated in Tehran, prompting the Iranian supreme leader to vow revenge on Israel, though Israeli officials kept quiet about the assassination. The 2 strikes have the potential to dramatically ramp up tensions in the region and prompt a direct Iranian attack on Israel. It could also prompt Hamas to pull out of ceasefire efforts that are currently brokering or attempting to broker an end to the months-long war in Gaza. The U.S. and other nations were scrambling to attempt to avoid a regional conflagration.
Olympian Katie Ledecky made a splash at the Summer Games in Paris. Correspondent Steve Futterman reports.
For Katie Ledecky, it almost looked like an afternoon swim in the pool, except this was the Olympic pool. Ledecky led wire to wire as she won her 8th lifetime gold medal in the women's 1,500-meter freestyle. She set an Olympic record, winning by more than 10 seconds. It was a very comfortable swim.
There was no real point in the race where I felt like I really fell off, so I felt good all the way through, and mentally I was just using all of the tricks that I've used through all these years of distance swimming.
And Ledecky, who is now 27, said she would very much like to compete again in the 1500 4 years from now in Los Angeles. Also yesterday, the U.S. men's basketball team won its 2nd game here in France over South Sudan. Tonight, the focus moves back to Simone Biles. She is the favorite in the women's all-around. Also competing for the U.S. will be the Tokyo gold medalist, Suni Lee. I'm Steve Futterman at the Summer Olympics in Paris.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better together. Save 40% on a Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. When we return on America in the Morning, Biden attacks the fentanyl crisis after these messages. Potential severe weather on track for the Midwest today. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Adam Sadvary on America in the Morning.
Another round of showers and thunderstorms, some potentially severe, will target areas from the Midwest and Great Lakes through much of the Ohio Valley this afternoon and evening. The main threat posed by these storms will be locally damaging wind gusts. However, large hail and isolated tornadoes can also be a factor. Some areas impacted by multiple rounds of storms this afternoon could also be at risk for localized flash flooding. Elsewhere in the plains, dry and hot weather will persist as a heat dome strengthens across the region. Once again, the core of this heat will be focused in the south-central U.S., particularly for Oklahoma and along the Red River into northern Texas, where widespread high temperatures are poised to soar into the middle and upper 100s. This heat dome will even continue to expand through the western U.S. over the next few days. A heat wave is projected to begin later today for much of the Northwest and Northern Rockies, with exceptions for coastal areas, which will remain comfortable. The expanding heat and drought will also enhance the risk of wildfire development. Fires have already been scorching much of the region, including the Park Fire in California, which remains active, having burned hundreds of square miles. Smoke from area wildfires will continue to drape across much of the West Coast, leading to poor air quality for some communities. Heat is also forecast to build into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic today through the end of the week. Widespread high temperatures in the 90s and near 100 has spawned heat advisories from New Jersey and Pennsylvania through the eastern Carolinas. Heat advisories and warnings are also active for much of the south and central Mississippi River Valley, leading to an enhanced risk for heat-related illness. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Adam Sadvary.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. President Biden is urging Congress to do more to curb the fentanyl crisis in America before leaving office. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The White House announcing a series of proposals aimed at reducing a growing number of fentanyl-related deaths in America.
A new national security memorandum directing every federal agency and department to do even more to stop the flow of narcotics into the United States.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
And a call on Congress to pass legislation that would close key loopholes drug traffickers exploit, increase penalties on drug traffickers, and more.
The Biden administration pushing legislation that would establish a pill press and tableting machine registry and boost penalties against convicted drug smugglers and traffickers of fentanyl. The move comes as former President Trump goes after presumptive Democratic presidential nominee VP Kamala Harris's record at the southern border. Some in Washington say it's an effort by the White House to establish immigration and the state of the border as a priority heading toward November. I'm Clayton Neville.
The man accused of being the main plotter of the September 11th attacks has agreed to plead guilty. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
The Defense Department says Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and two accomplices in the 2001 9/11 attack are expected to enter guilty pleas at the military commission at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, as soon as next week. The plea agreement comes more than 16 years after their prosecution began for al-Qaeda's attack, and more than 20 years after militants flew commandeered commercial airliners into buildings, killing nearly 3,000 people. Defense lawyers have requested that they receive life sentences in exchange for the guilty pleas. The head of one group of families of those killed, Terry Strada, reacted to the news, saying that the men were cowards when they planned the attack, and says they're cowards today. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
When we return on America in the Morning, the Fed talks interest rate cuts after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. Thanks for listening. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. As we turn the page of the calendar on a new month, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Welcome to the first day of August trading. The Fed held interest rates steady yesterday, teed up the possibility that a rate cut could be coming in September, and stocks popped to wrap up the month of July. The Dow and the S&P 500 each had winning Julys, but the Nasdaq was lower, and it was its first losing July in 10 years. Gold at a new record high this morning, $2,473 an ounce. Facebook parent Meta with strong quarterly results after the closing bell last night. Shares were higher after hours. Investors liked what Fed Chair Jay Powell said about interest rates.
A rate cut could be on the table at the September meeting. If inflation were to prove, stickier and we were to see higher readings from inflation, disappointing readings, we would weigh that.
Fed Chair Jay Powell. Computer chip stocks soared.
Good report from Advanced Micro Devices. Some reports that ASML, big chip equipment maker, may not be subject to as onerous of restrictions as it may thought for exports to China, according to a Reuters report citing sources. NVIDIA, though, Qualcomm, some of the large cap tech names that are also seeing a big bid in the market. Even the ETF that tracks it, the ticker SMH, is up 6.5%.
CNBC's Dominic Chu. Might be a good weekend to look for a house to buy. Mortgage rates are sitting at a 6-month low this morning, 6.78% for a 30-year fixed-rate loan. That's according to Mortgage News Daily. Mortgage rates loosely follow the rate on the 10-year Treasury, which fell as investors started to believe the Fed will start cutting interest rates in the next 2 months.
Delta and other airlines now reporting on the meltdown from last week.
Delta Airlines CEO tells CNBC that the CrowdStrike Microsoft IT outage that forced it to leave passengers stranded for as long as a week cost the airline $500 million. Delta is poised to sue those IT giants. And the CEO apologized with CNBC anchors live in Paris for the Olympics yesterday.
It was terrible. It was terrible. And apologies again to our customers, our people. I mean, all of you guys. Right. We brought so much of the production crews, the athletes over. It was just a really, really tough situation.
Delta CEO Ed Bastian. Meantime, on Reddit, Delta customers complaining that they're being denied reimbursement from the airline for everything from the plane tickets they had to buy on other airlines to get home to hotel rooms they had to get after sleeping on airport floors for a night or two. On today's watch list, first day of August trading, of course, we get earnings from Amazon and Apple. We find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week. And the NFL preseason starts tonight. The Texans and Bears are playing in the Hall of Fame game.
There's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. The South Carolina Supreme Court has weighed in on the state's use of the death penalty. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
All 5 justices agreed with at least part of the ruling, opening the door to restart executions in a state that hasn't put an inmate to death since 2011. South Carolina's death penalty now includes a firing squad, as well as lethal injection and the electric chair. But 2 of the justices said they felt the firing squad was not a legal way to kill an inmate, and one of them felt the electric chair is a cruel and unusual punishment. I'm Haya Panjwani.
A new health warning concerning cinnamon when America in the Morning returns after these messages. Back now, you're with America in the Morning. Questions are still swirling about the validity of Venezuela's recent election. Correspondent Jennifer King has details.
Political turmoil continues in Venezuela while the Carter Center, invited to monitor the presidential election there, said it was unable to verify the results and blamed authorities for a lack of transparency. President Nicolas Maduro is claiming victory in Sunday's election as some of his political allies call for opposition leaders to be arrested. The election was among the most peaceful in recent memory, but demonstrators took to the streets after Maduro was declared the winner by a national electoral council that is loyal to the ruling party. Venezuela's attorney general told reporters more than 700 protesters were arrested and an officer was killed on Monday. At a large opposition rally in Caracas, supporters waved tally sheets and banners as leader Marina Corina Machado spoke from atop a truck and called for the results to be released. U.S. officials also want Venezuela to release the voting data. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
Given that there are clear signs that the election results announced by the Venezuela's National Electoral Council do not reflect the will of the Venezuelan people.
I'm Jennifer King.
The FDA is once again warning about ground cinnamon tainted with lead. Correspondent Julie Walker explains.
The FDA is adding to a warning that several types of ground cinnamon sold at certain discount and specialty grocery stores are contaminated with high levels of lead, from a little over 2 parts per million to about 7 parts per million, and should be thrown out. The agency also recommending a recall. This is the FDA's third alert this year, which adds at least 10 types of packaged ground cinnamon. The American Spice Trade Association calls for no more than 2 parts per million of lead in cinnamon. Many foods, including spices, contain lead from natural sources, such as soil and water. Spices also can accumulate lead from other sources in the environment. Some lead in spices may come from manufacturing, storage, or shipping. I'm Julie Walker.
America in the Morning for Thursday, August 1st, 2024 is produced by Alexander Hinton. Our senior producer is Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Former President Trump questioning the vice president's ethnicity. I'm Clayton Neville.
Fears continue to grow over an expanding war in the Middle East.
We're obviously concerned about escalation.
I'm Linda Kenyon in Washington.
The White House is announcing a series of proposals from President Joe Biden to help curb the ongoing drug epidemic. Donna Porter, Washington.
Vermont dealing with more flooding. I'm Pamela Furr.
A U.S. official says Ukraine has received the first F-16 fighter jets. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Back after these messages. Back now, this is America in the Morning, beginning in the nation's midsection with today's forecast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Adam Sadberry.
Dry and hot weather will persist in the plains as a heat dome strengthens across the region through the end of the week. Widespread high temperatures into the 100s can be expected for much of Texas, as well as Oklahoma and even parts of Kansas for the next few days. This heat dome will continue to expand into much of the south and central Mississippi River Valley as well, spawning widespread heat advisories and warnings. Largely dry weather and peak summertime humidity will lead to an enhanced risk for heat-related illness in these areas. While much of the West has been experiencing temperatures above the historical average, hotter conditions will even begin to creep into much of the Northwest beginning today. These amplifying dry and hot conditions will increase the risk of wildfires, particularly in Oregon and even California, the state where the Park Fire has scorched hundreds of square miles of land. Many in the east will also be exposed to an enhanced heat and humidity for the next few days. AccuWeather real-field temperatures in the upper 90s and 100s will be widespread for many along the I-95 corridor. Elsewhere in the Midwest and Ohio Valley, another round of severe thunderstorms will ignite once again through this afternoon and evening. The main threat posed by these storms will be locally damaging wind gusts. However, large hail and isolated tornadoes can also be a factor. Any storm that does ignite may be capable of producing flooding downpours as well. That's the weather across America. In Denver, Colorado, it will be partly sunny and hot with a high of 98. And in Scranton, Pennsylvania, very warm and humid with a spotty late-day thunderstorm, the high 91. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Adam Sadberry.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Former President Donald Trump's appearance before the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago is stirring up some controversy. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Former President Trump said that he agreed to be at the National Association of Black Journalists conference with the understanding that Vice President and presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris would be addressing the group too. That never happened, and after a delayed start to the event, a contentious first few moments when ABC's Rachel Scott asked the first question.
You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. Why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say hello, how are you?
Trump insisted he's done a lot for the black population,
including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs.
Trump at one point questioned the vice president's ethnicity.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
The White House snapped back. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre calling the comments repulsive.
No one has any right to tell someone who they are, how they identify. That is no one's right. It is someone's own decision.
CBS Chicago spoke with journalists who attended the conference after it was over.
It was absolutely bizarre. It was disrespectful. He degraded us as journalists. He degraded black people. He degraded women. It's pretty much par for the course.
I could have sat there longer. I wanted to hear what he had to say.
A convention organizer who stepped down over the decision to allow the Q&A with Trump released a statement after the event calling the move a colossal mistake. I'm Clayton Neville.
The war between Israel and Hamas has reached new heights following the death of Hamas' top political leader. Correspondent Linda Kenyon has that story.
It was an airstrike in the Iranian capital, Tehran, that killed the Hamas leader. Hamas says Israel is behind the attack. In an address to his nation, and without mentioning the killing, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel, quote, will exact a very heavy price from any aggression against us on any front. And he added, there are challenging days ahead. Challenging indeed, said National Security Council spokesman John Kirby at the White House.
All of this adds to the complicated nature of what we're trying to get done. And what we're trying to get done is a ceasefire deal.
A ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas to end the war in Gaza that began after Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. The death of Hamas's political leader in Iran was just one incident in the past few days. Another was the killing of a top Hezbollah commander in the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Israel blames Hezbollah for a rocket strike on the Golan Heights that killed several Israelis, mostly young people, as they were playing soccer. It's hard to see how these recent provocations and retaliations won't lead to a wider war in the region. But Admiral Kirby says escalation is not inevitable.
These reports over the last 48 hours certainly don't help with the temperature going down. I'm not going to be Pollyannish about it. We're obviously concerned about escalation.
And Kirby says the U.S. is taking this very seriously.
This is something that we've been concerned about since the 7th of October. It's not like we're brushing off concerns at all. We're watching this very, very closely, and it's been a chief concern of the president.
And with each passing day, Kirby says the prospects for peace seem harder to reach.
It's too soon to know, based on the reporting over the last 48 hours, what impact any of this is going to have on the ceasefire deal. It was always complicated. It remains complicated.
One Western diplomat cautions the strikes in Beirut and Tehran have almost killed hopes for a peace deal to end the war in Gaza. Lindy Kenyon, Washington.
Team USA with a productive day at the Summer Olympics in Paris. Correspondent Gethin Coolball has more.
The United States lead atop the medal count at the Paris Olympics is tightening after winning just 4 medals on day 5. The Americans have a Summer Games leading 30 total medals. Meanwhile, host France has closed the gap to 4 with 26, but the French are now tied for the most golds with China and Japan at 8. The U.S. has 5 gold medals. The lone U.S. gold of the day came courtesy of Katie Ledecky, the iconic American swimmer, easily romping to the 7th medal of her Olympic career.
Any gold medal it's not easy to win. So I'm just trying to appreciate the moment.
Ledecky led from the start and pulled away, touching in an Olympic record 15 minutes and 30.02 seconds to win the 1,500-meter relay.
Just happy with the time and just happy with how it felt.
Tori Husk won silver for the U.S. in the women's 100-meter freestyle with a time of 52.29 seconds. American Evie Liebfarb won bronze in the women's canoe slalom. And Paris Benegas of the U.S. rose to the occasion, going from 4th place in Tokyo to a silver medal in Paris with 90.70 points. An ambitious plan to clean up the long-polluted Seine River paid off when the swimming portions of the Paris Olympics triathlons were finally held in the waterway. Nathan Dutton is an amateur triathlete from Utah.
There was obviously some concerns about the
quality of the water, which, I mean, I would be concerned about. But in the end, it's the Olympics, and if you're going to get sick for one race of the year, it's this race.
No Americans earned a spot on the triathlon podium. LeBron James became the third American ever to score 300 points in his Olympic career in the U.S. men's basketball team's 103-86 win over South Sudan. James finished with 12 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. Meanwhile, the U.S. men's 3-on-3 basketball team fell to 0-2 in pool play with a 19-17 loss to Poland. And Spain's Rafael Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz were eliminated in the men's doubles quarterfinals. The loss could have been the 38-year-old Nadal's final match at Roland Garros.
We tried our best, just we didn't play enough well, and the opponents played really well, I think. And we enjoyed it. We had a great week together. We had fun playing, lifetime experience.
I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
When we return on America in the Morning, tampering with Secret Service vehicles. Arrest made after these messages. We're back. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. The White House is pushing Congress to do more to curb the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
Biden plans to push Congress to pass legislation to establish a pill press and tableting machine registry and increase penalties against convicted drug smugglers and traffickers of fentanyl. Biden also wants to tighten rules on importers shipping small packages into the U.S., requiring them to provide additional information to Customs and Border Protection. Chemical compounds can find their way into the U.S. if they're in relatively low-value shipments that are not subject to customs and trade barriers. In a statement, Biden says, still far too many of our fellow Americans continue to lose loved ones to fentanyl. He says this is a time to act, and this is a time to stand together for all those we have lost and for all the lives we can save. Donna Warder, Washington.
A man has been arrested for tampering with Secret Service vehicles in New York City. Correspondent Julie Walker has that story.
A New York City software developer was arrested after allegedly damaging the license plates of 2 Secret Service vehicles assigned to protect Vice President Kamala Harris's stepdaughter, who was dining at a restaurant in Tribeca at the time. The Secret Service says Ella Emhoff was not in danger. The man, Harry Heyman, appears to be a supporter of a small group of citizen activists who call attention to and sometimes personally adjust the obstructed license plates often used to evade tolls and traffic enforcement. An X profile bearing the suspect's name shows dozens of messages about the issue. Heyman was charged with obstructing governmental administration and criminal mischief. Julie Walker, New York.
America in the Morning continues. Vermont dealing with lots of flooding. Experts say this could be the new normal for the Green Mountain State. Correspondent Pamela Furr has the story.
Experts say climate change is fueling stronger, more persistent storms, and the state's infrastructure is feeling the effects in villages along the Green Mountains, rivers, and streams, which carry a huge amount of water. This while many homeowners are still trying to rebuild from floods just a year ago, considered historic at that time. Vermont's governor said Wednesday the latest storms to hit the state have undone much of the recovery from its last major bout of flooding only weeks ago. Meteorologist Peter Bonakos of the National Weather Service says Vermont is a very mountainous state with steeply sloped hillsides.
When we get heavy rainfall, the orography is such that you're channeling the water in certain locations down hillsides, and it's making the runoff much worse than it would be, say, if the ground were flat.
He says it's been raining more frequently in Vermont.
We have soil conditions that are more moist or even saturated as the next system comes along. So we see rainfall falling on saturated ground, and that's going immediately into a surface runoff situation rather than being able to percolate into the soils.
He also says, get used to it.
We're seeing more moisture-laden air masses making it into up to our latitude. So, as a function of that, when you get thunderstorms, they can produce heavier rainfall than they would otherwise.
I'm Pamela Furr.
Shakeup in the leadership at Boeing. Correspondent Damian Troisi is following developments.
Boeing has a new CEO. The company said Wednesday that aerospace industry veteran Robert Kelly Ortberg will take over as CEO next week, replacing David Calhoun. Boeing is announcing the new CEO as it reports a loss of more than $1.4 billion in the second quarter. The loss was wider than Wall Street expected. Revenue also fell short of analysts' forecasts. It fell 15% during the quarter. Boeing's commercial airplanes business and its defense unit lost money. The disappointing results come at a tumultuous time for Boeing. The company agreed to plead guilty this month to a federal fraud charge in connection with its 737 MAX jetliner and two crashes that killed 346 people. Damian Troisi, New York.
Ukraine has received the first F-16 fighter jets it's been seeking to boost its defenses against Russia. Correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
Kyiv had been urging Western allies to send the jets to help it fight off Russian missile attacks. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced 3 weeks ago the F-16s were being transferred to Ukraine.
Those jets will be flying in the skies of Ukraine this summer.
The U.S. has been training Ukrainian pilots on how to fly the jets, which are specialized in suppressing enemy air defenses. It's unclear how many F-16s have arrived. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
In yet another outage brought on by a cyber attack, OneBlood donation centers are dealing with a ransomware issue affecting their ability to distribute blood to over 250 hospitals in the Southeast. More on the story from Chuck Palm.
Over 250 hospitals in the Southeast have been affected by a ransomware attack on the blood supply. Not-for-profit company OneBlood, which serves hospitals mainly in the southeastern United States, has been hit with a ransomware cyber attack that's affecting Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. Citing a statement on their website, OneBlood remains operational and continues to collect, test, and distribute blood. Although the cyber attack has affected the organization's ability to process and distribute shipments to hospitals, OneBlood spokesperson Susan Forbes said, "We have implemented manual processes and procedures to remain operational. These processes take significantly longer to perform and impact inventory availability." As a public service, OneBlood is urging anybody eligible to donate blood anywhere in the Southeast. The blood supply cannot be taken for granted, and the situation they're dealing with is currently ongoing. For more tech news, visit allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
Robert Workman is in with sports this Thursday. Robert?
Baseball on Wednesday, the Giants blanked the A's 1-0. Logan Webb went the distance on a 5-hitter in an hour and 55 minutes.
It's like a weird random thought. I don't know why I would think of this, but I've almost tried to look at the time on the iPad, and I was like, I probably shouldn't do that. I should probably lock it in a little bit, but I knew it was pretty quick.
The teams wore throwback uniforms, and the game was broadcast in black and white. Padres pounced on the Dodgers 8-1. Dylan Cease followed up his no-no with a combo 3-hitter. Cardinals crushed the Rangers 10-1. Michael McGreevy went 7 innings for the win in his major league debut. Well done, mate. Orioles overpowered the Blue Jays 10-4. Number 1 prospect Jackson Holliday's debut back in April didn't go very well. 2 hits in 34 at-bats. He returned to the show yesterday with a bang. His first home run, a grand slam, helping Grayson Rodriguez get his league-leading 13th victory. Elsewhere, the Yankees fought off the Phillies 6-5. DJ LeMahieu with a granny and a 2-run double to account for all of New York's runs. Braves barreled over the Brewers 6-2. Matt Olson and Travis d'Arnaud with back-to-back jacks in the 4th inning and again in the 8th. Rockies edged the Angels 2-1. Brenton Doyle began July with a homer in his first at-bat for Colorado. He closed it out with a winning blast in the 8th yesterday. His 11th homer of the month. Nobody hit more. Cubs routed the Reds 13-4, 17 hits, 8 of them doubles. Royals wiped out the White Sox 10-3. That's Chicago's 17th consecutive loss. Wins for the Red Sox, Diamondbacks, Twins, Marlins, and Astros. And are you ready for some football? Well, get your popcorn. The Hall of Fame game is tonight in Canton, Ohio. The Texans against the Bears. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. When we return on America in the Morning, Dr. Doom, after these messages. This is America in the Morning, and we leave you today with this piece from Entertainment. Jonathan Majors has some thoughts on Robert Downey Jr. replacing him in the upcoming Avengers films. Correspondent Kevin Carr has details.
Jonathan Majors has commented on being replaced by Robert Downey Jr. as the villain in the upcoming Avengers films. Majors appeared as Kang the Conqueror in the Disney Plus series Loki and the film Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
I will take my revenge on those who banished me, and I will burn them out of time.
However, after the actor was found guilty of assault and harassment earlier this year, Marvel dropped him from the franchise. TMZ spoke to Majors on Tuesday about the casting decision.
Yeah, heartbroken. I love him. I love Kang. Love He Who Remains. Love him.
At Comic-Con this weekend, the studio announced that Downey would play the classic villain Dr. Doom in the upcoming films.
We give you the one person who could play Victor Von Doom.
Puck News reports that Downey stands to make $100 million from both movies and receive perks like a trailer encampment and private jet travel. Marvel has been criticized for dropping Majors for a misdemeanor while Downey served jail time for drug-related charges in the late 90s. Majors said he would like the same consideration.
I think it's fair that Mr. Downey is being and has been greeted with patience and curiosity and love. I didn't really get that.
Downey will star in the now revamped Avengers Doomsday in 2026 and Avengers Secret Wars in 2027. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for this Thursday, August 1st, 2024. America in the Morning is produced by Alexander Hinton. Our senior producer, Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.